and get started. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out on such a rainy night. I'd like to make a big deal of it being rainy, but it's been raining constantly for a couple of months. But I'm Brian Ward. I'm the Assistant Director here at Archives and History. And tonight we're very excited because one of our own are actually going to be presenting. Bobby, we asked Bobby to do this a while back, and he said yes very quickly, and he's been working on it ever since, especially the last couple of days. So I won't stay up here too long, but I want to tell you some things we have coming up. On Thursday, May 12th, we're going to have the author George Hall come. He's going to be talking about guerrilla warfare in Western Virginia and West Virginia from 1861 to 1863, specifically with the Moccasin Rangers and the Civil War heroine Nancy Hart. So you guys may want to come and see more about that next Thursday right here in our theater. Next month, on the first Tuesday of the month, we're going to have our movie night. Dick Faust, who's back there on the camera, is going to bring some stuff out from our audiovisual archives for everyone to see. So hopefully you guys can make it out next month and see that. So without further ado, welcome down Bobby Taylor.
Well, thank you all for coming on this, like he said, very rainy night. I think we need more rain, don't you all? I'd like to start off from my beginnings in music. My grandmother's house, there was an old fiddle hanging on the wall. It had a little blue ribbon around it. It just hanged on. It hanged on a nail there right by the fireplace. And when I was 13 and my brother was 10, my father said, well, he thought us boys was old enough to perhaps respect the fiddle that his dad had given to him on his deathbed. And I got to carry it across the hill. And this is the first presentation. I've done other historical presentations, but this is the first one that I've done in bringing out as many instruments as I brought out tonight for you all. I will move away from the mic periodically, and maybe you can still hear me when I do, because I've got a display of instruments there that I need to get to. So I'll start pointing some things out here. This is John Clinton Taylor. He is my grandfather. We didn't get my father in the thing. I know that you all can't see this, but it's on a little thing up here. This is my father, about 92 years old. He died at 94 and a half, still playing fiddle to the end. But this is the old Stainer heirloom fiddle. That's one of the most special things that I have. When Dad passed away, it was passed on to me. Okay. And next up here, the generations of Taylor fiddlers. You've got Elijah Jefferson here, who was in the Civil War. You have my grandfather, John Clinton, my father, and me, 4 generations of fiddlers. On this board is other fiddlers in the Taylor family. This fiddle was not only John Clinton's fiddle, it was Lyle Taylor's, which is right here. That is about, Dad said, 2 weeks before he died with tuberculosis. According to many people, he was in that area, and fiddlers later. He was supposedly the greatest there was. They copied him. This was his fiddle too. Now, his brother, another brother is Uncle William Lewis Taylor. They called him Lute. I never could figure out how to spell lute. L-U-T-E, L-O-O-T, this is Uncle Lute's fiddle. It come to me after my Uncle John died, my father's brother. And at this point, I think I will mention that Lyle Taylor's son, old Nick, with the goofy hat on. Old Nick was not a good fiddler. He was an absolute great fiddler. All the greats, you got to realize, would win over each other. And this guy was good enough to have beaten Clark Kessinger more than once. So he was no slouch. So that was Lyle Taylor's son. And now I'd like to pick up a fiddle and get my friends Kim Johnson, who is recorded with Wilson Douglas, Lester McCumber, John Lilly, the editor of Golden Seal magazine, and a great writer of songs and a wonderful performer who has performed all over the nation and even in Ireland and several other countries. So, Old Nick, before he died, can you all hear me okay? I'm usually hate microphones, and I'm used to talking to an audience without a mic. So, but just before he died, him and Mike Humphreys wrote a tune. They called it Old Nick. And he was born without any fingers on his right hand. He had fallen just before he had passed away in 1952. No, 54. And broken his right arm. And I was talking to Mike about it. And he said, he's playing the fiddle with that broke arm. I said, well, he couldn't play that way. And Mike said, somebody should have told him. So he was Mike Humphrey's buddy. That is Old Nick, and some of Mike Humphrey's family and the Humphreys family is right back here on the back row. So let's see if I can get through Old Nick. It's a lot like Durang. Before Dad died in 2005. I think he would have liked to have heard it. We'd lost it for so many years that we thought we'd never find it. And I went through every cassette tape I had in the house looking for old. I'd like to move on now. The pictures on the recording. Like I said, Lyle Taylor. That's Lyle there. This is Old Nick. You can see there's no fingers on his hand, on that right hand there. That is Old Nick there next to his dad. And that's my grandfather as a younger man. And as I said, Uncle Luke is there. Now then, I mentioned my dad. This fiddle is my dad's fiddle. That was the last fiddle that he actually played. I didn't clean it up. I'm not going to. Dad played this just before he died and taught me a tune 3 weeks before he died. And that is his fiddle. And the most valuable fiddle that I have is this one. Nobody knows why, do you? When I was a little boy, it's nailed together and made of plywood. Dad made me this fiddle, my first fiddle. Priceless to me. So, now, the fiddle I just played is a part of the musical heritage. I'm proud to say that West Virginia doesn't take second place to anybody. Just always remember that. Never. Harold Hazlett, gold medal out of 17 countries for tumbling. The most beautiful fiddle I think I've ever seen is number 19 that I just played Old Nick on. Harold Hazlett, so many violins had sold because of 19, he decided that he wanted to teach me to make a fiddle. And this fiddle here, or violin, is one that I apprenticed under Harold Hazlett and May. Harold once said that it was the neatest first fiddle he had ever seen. I thought, well, makers do not play and players don't make. Okay? They're major hobbies. I figured that if this one was the only one I was ever going to make, that I was ever going to be able to make, it had better be made right. Oral Henderson, fancy carver, number 19, inspired Oral Henderson to make hundreds of fiddles. Great fiddlers play his instruments all over. He is my dad's sister's boy, making him my first cousin. Now I'm going to go on to the next screen here.
Sir, I just wondered, where was that photo taken with the family on the porch there?
That is in Roane County. That was in Roane County, down in Walton. And that picture was taken about 1910, as near as we can tell. Now, up here, I have a list of a whole collage of pictures that are very important. And at this stage of the game, I'd like to have Kim come up here. And I'll let her point out and tell you a few things about the pictures here. I am going to play, but we have David Morris here, Genus Cottrell, and French Carpenter. We have Ira Mullins from Clay County. We have, as I said, Wilson there. And I'll let Kim point out some of the rest, because that's her area, and I know them, but I want her to tell you a little bit about them, because we're going to play one of their tunes here.
This is Doc White here and up there in the corner, Doc White. And this is French Carpenter. And this is French Carpenter in World War I. And that's Genus Cottrell. He made this banjo, and that's his mother. I think, oh, let's see, is Genus on the end again? They're all from around Ivydale area.
Okay, we're going to play a tune now for Wilson Douglas, and I'm going to let Kim select the tune to represent Wilson. I think she'll pick a cross key piece, probably.
Well, I don't.
My apologies for the weather and the evening, because sometimes these fiddles, when you try to get as many of these in tune in this weather, they don't hold. This is a hard showcase to do when it comes to tuning. You're juggling all these fiddles. the traditional old style, now I moved back in. If you notice, the first style I played was a pretty smooth style. And this style here is a archaic old style. It's the fiddle is tuned cross key, the old mountain tuning. And this is one called Shelvin Rock. Did you notice a big style difference change there with the old drones and the old sound that kind of takes you back in time? Back in the mountains of West Virginia with no written down music, those tunes were passed on down through the ages from one generation to the next. And the Clay County tradition, the famous Ed Haley. The picture of Ed Haley is right here. He was a blind fiddler, and he was phenomenal. He basically was called by John Hartford the grandfather of fiddling in America. Now, and I thought for a minute, grandfather, well, who's the father? Clark Kessinger. Because Clark Kessinger recorded all those things in the 1920s. Now then, let's see here. Maybe we should play one more here on the little brown fiddle. All my fiddles are like my children. They have their names. This is a little brown fiddle. What do you call that? It's Camp Chase. Now what that means is Camp Chase is crooked as a dog's hind leg, meaning that it doesn't have meter that is very easy to play with. Yeah. But I want to say this about this tune. Saul Carpenter, and we mentioned French Carpenter up there, and I'd like to play this for the memory of Saul Carpenter. And French Carpenter's where I learned the tune off of his recording. French Carpenter's granddad, I think it was Saul Carpenter. And he was at Camp Chase, Ohio.
He was a prisoner of the Yankees.
He was a prisoner of war during the Civil War, and they decided to have a fiddle contest, and whoever won the contest won their freedom. Well, Saul Carpenter won the contest, they said, by 2 notes. You all get to figure out which 2. They are accented well, so we're not 100% sure, but we think we know the 2 notes. Let me get there where you
Hit you in the face.
the oldest sounding tune I know. If that doesn't take you back to the 1800s, nothing will. At this point in time, us here at the archives, we're celebrating the sesquicentennial of the Civil War and all that. And at this point in time, I'd like to get John Lilly to come up and play a wonderful old Civil War era type tune, My Home's Across the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Bobby mentioned this song dates back to the Civil War. There's a verse in here about I'll be riding with old Mosby. Some of you might know about Mosby and Mosby's Raiders, but he's basically saying goodbye to his family, and he says he never expects to see them anymore. So things were rough out there with the Mosby Raiders.
There's a
You
mic.
singing like every year, just
I could just belt it.
a bell around.
Right here.
Okay.
My home across the Ridge Mountain. My home across the Ridge Mountain. My home across the Ridge Mountain. And I never expect to see you anymore. It's very well, my blood darling. It's very well, my blood darling. Very well, my blood darling. I never expect to see you anymore. My home across the Ridge Mountain. My home across the Ridge Mountain. My home across the Ridge Mountain. And I never expect to see you anymore. I believe in Monday morning. I believe in Monday morning. I believe in Monday morning. And I never expect to see you anymore. How can I keep from crying? How can I keep from crying? How can I keep from crying? And I never expect to see you anymore. Rock babies keep on happy. Rock babies keep on happy. Rock babies keep on happy. For I never expect to see you anymore. Now I'll be riding with old Mosby. I'll be riding with old Mosby. I'll be riding with old Mosby. And I never expect to see you anymore. My home across the Ridge Mountain. My home across the Ridge Mountain. My home across the Ridge Mountain. And I never expect to see you anymore.
That's a great job, I tell you what. John sings all over the country, as I mentioned, and he keeps a lot of the heritage music alive, and he also has won numerous awards. He won a guitar after winning the Hank Williams contest, so songwriting contest there. Okay, let's see what else is on this. We've got, looks like here, some great players. We've got Phoebe there and Lester McCumbers. We've got Melvin Wine here, a great, great fiddler. We have also here Uncle Homer Walker. And I think we should bring a banjo out and see if it looks anything like that one.
Yeah, except for the string.
This is Uncle Homer's Walker's banjo. Like I said, a lot of history does come out.
How are you, really? He's my dad. I wish he was.
Homer Walker was a great old performer, and he played a lot at the Henry Reed Festival, didn't he?
No, John Henry.
John Henry, yeah. Other, yeah, and that's another one of the banjos. And that's his Gruder Morris here of the great Clay County tradition. Lee Triplett, great old fiddler, even held the fiddle properly, which is really the way I prefer to hold it. So does Harvey Sampson. And up there is Frank George, one of the ultimate legends that's still living. Frank George still lives and plays, and he still plays very well and can still the festival. That's the only way to put it. Kim just got back from Breaking Up Winter, playing some music with Frank, and they gave him a big award and all this. So that is some more of the Clay County, Bradford County, Calhoun tradition. And let's see here. I think we'll move to the next frame now. Now we get to some people that I'm not even sure that there's probably a couple people who know who this is.
Yeah.
This is Fiddlin' Mike Humphreys, perhaps the most influential in my plan. I'm probably, if you want to know the truth, play a little more like Mike Humphreys than any fiddler that I've learned from. But a very beautiful lady, two beautiful ladies, but the one in particular I'm interested in pointing out is, this is Hassel time. Have you all seen this picture, the family?
I've seen the two together, but not in that picture. It's a different, they're both facing the
I don't even know where I got the picture, but she was a very beautiful
She
lady.
was.
And I would like to say that Teresa and Robin and Jeannie are here today, and they are descendant of Hasseltine. As a matter of fact, she was Jeannie's grandmother and great-grandmother to Robin and Teresa. I'd like for them to stand. And I would like to point out another fiddle. This is Hasseltine's fiddle. Now, Hasseltine was, as I have been able to interview people, and I don't want to take anything away from any of the great legends, and I can't do that really, because the thing is, they're all great, as I said, on a given day, could win a contest. But the stories I know about Hasseltine is that she always thought that Lyle Taylor, that you've seen earlier, was one of the best fiddlers she had ever heard in her life. Sam Jarvis is down here, also learned from Lyle Taylor. Those are two unbeatable fiddlers, according to the legend, and I've even got to hear the recording of Sam Jarvis. And I'll play you a Sam Jarvis tune here very shortly. But I want to mention about Hasseltine. She was practicing, apparently, one day, and everybody wondered why she was practicing. She said, well, Clark Kettinger's the best there is. And I thought I'd go beat him. She practiced, she went, and she won. unheard of for a lady in that time period to do. Most women did not play at that time. Now we've got a world of unbelievable women fiddlers. If you go to the Grand Masters, they seem to be taking it all these days. So there is how history kind of evolves and turns. So the thing is, I once asked how she rated with Mike. Well, Denver Jackson said, oh, she was better. Then there was another person that played with Southern Mixed Band, a drummer, and he knew her. I said, well, how did she rate? He said, oh, she was better. They said that she had the prettiest little shuffle on the bow that you ever seen. And then Bob Kessinger, just before he passed away, said that Clark once made a statement that he'd give anything if he could use the bow like that lady. The greatest bower I ever seen in my life was Clark Kessinger. Bar none. I didn't hear Hassel time. But how good was she? Pretty great, I guess. Two things survived in the fiddle case that I just dropped my teeth when I first seen them. Anybody know what these are? Old fiddlesticks. These are the old original fiddlesticks that Hasseltine had that survived. I had the fiddle to fix up for Teresa, and I said, Teresa, whatever you do, keep these in your jewelry box, didn't I? I said, keep them with the most valuable things you've got. That's a part of preserving our heritage. These fiddles, like I say, if they could only talk, if they could only tell you the story. But this is Hasseltine's.
Bob, I hate to ask this as a novice, what's a fiddlestick for?
It's nothing.
Fiddlesticks is if you're playing a cross-key piece, you get these alternating rhythms as the fiddler is playing. As a matter of fact, do I have a volunteer to come up here and... John, you want to try the fiddlesticks?
Unless someone else wants to try it.
I'll pull out a fiddle here that we can play a little brushy run or something, and Kim wants to get the banjo, that's fine too. We'll show you what fiddlesticks is. This wasn't even a part of the program, but we'll try it. It's fun. Now, I tell you, in an earlier picture I mentioned Phoebe and Harvey. Harvey said, I don't like her to do fiddlesticks on my fiddle. She grabs my ankles. I'll get her. Is Ed Haley. That was an Ed Haley tune. I hadn't introduced Ed Haley too much yet, but that was an Ed Haley tune, and it's one of the prettiest tunes I think I've ever heard. And with the fiddlesticks, that added even a nice little rhythm to it. That was Brushy Run. Now then, with all these great fiddlers on the scene, I think what we will do now is to move to Sam Jarvis in the key of G. We're going to play you a tune that I learned off of his recording. Sam Jarvis, along with the great Kentucky fiddler, inspired a lot of my fiddling. Fiddling Doc Roberts and Sam Jarvis played a lot alike. They were the cleanest, smoothest fiddlers I ever heard. Up here, I guess. Let's just not crowd in that little hole there.
It's kind of high.
Well, let's see.
Okay.
Okay. The little guitar is real special. I'll tell you how special here in a little bit. The little guitar is a 1928 Gibson. And I'll tell you a little story about it later, but it has come out as probably the only known example of this, perhaps, or very rare. But here's McLeod's Reel, or Muskrat Rag is what Sam Jarvis called it. Nobody knows why. Doc Roberts. I should always pay tribute to Doc Roberts because when I was very young, probably 15, my dad told me about a recording that Doc Roberts recorded. He called him Jim Burke because he had a lot of different names on the recording. Well, I went to Grandma Moore's house, and she said, "You can look through the records are back there." I went and right in the bottom of a huge stack of records, the red label was Jim Burke. Broke in half. Broke in half. I wanted to hear the record so bad that I had young eyes then. I'm old now, but I had young eyes then. I thought, I wonder if I can match those grooves up and play that record. Put a little glue on each end. That's how I learned this tune here, which is one of my dad's favorites. the smooth rolling style. Those were my dad's favorites, but my dad played nothing like those. He was a raucous, hoedown fiddler. Double shuffle and the whole bit there, I tell you. Now then, I'd like to say that right here is Bill Miller. He did make this. Now the little guitar that John was playing is that guitar. Bill Miller's mother and dad both died when he was like 14 years old. He stayed with a few relatives and started to work. One of the greatest men I've ever known in my life is Bill Miller. He died at 93 years old. And that guitar was damaged beyond any belief you've ever seen, the one that John was just playing there. The damage was so extensive, it was not repairable, according to most people at the time. I said, I'd love to have that guitar. Bill said, well, you can have it. I took it home. About 5 years later, Bill Miller comes back. He said, I want the neck out of that guitar because a friend of mine broke the neck out of their Gibson guitar and they need it. I said, no, you can't have the neck. He said, well, you're not going to get that fixed, are you? I said, before you die, you'll play this again. It's the last thing I ever did. I had to take it to the nursing home. We got footage of him playing it. And one of the greater moments in my life was to hear Bill Miller, as he played it, saying, it sounds like it used to. That's preserving the heritage now. That's preserving the legacy. Now, each of you all here have a legacy in your family. Grandma, whether it be Grandma's dishes, a quilt she made, whatever. It is just unbelievable. I really feel, as you can tell, I'm a neataholic actually, but you know what else I am? I'm a pack rat. You know, those personalities hate each other. The pack rat keeps everything, but the neataholic then put them all in Rubbermaid tubs. Oh well. Now then, I guess it's only fitting and proper to move to Fiddle and Mike Humphreys. When I moved to Fiddle and Mike Humphreys, and I like to put people on the spot just to aggravate them, but the thing is, Mike Humphreys was very special and passed music on to me. There's a few young players now that are not just good. They are unbelievably great. And there for many years when I was playing stuff, not some of the simpler stuff you've heard me play this evening, but some of the more complicated stuff learned from Mike Humphreys and Clark Kessler. I thought this stuff is really going to die because it was hard to do, so it's hard to teach in a workshop. I had several young students at one time. They've all grown up, graduated, moved on, and went to great things. Now I need another batch of young players, but I can't find them right now. But to assist me in playing Mike Humphreys' Bow the Cabbage Down, I'd like to ask Jake Crack, who was my apprentice, who probably plays more of my stuff and more like me than anyone, to come up and help me play Bow the Cabbage. I need all the help I can get on a rainy night. He doesn't have arthritis. Now, I'll tell you what. This is Jake Crack. He has basically played everywhere. And somebody once asked me, they said, how good is Jake when it comes to like a fiddle contest? And I said, well, I'll tell you one thing. He's got a lot of tools in the tool chest. If he decides to use them, you may be in trouble piecing them together. And what is so neat is Jake has used some of the licks that I showed him, put them in different tunes that I never thought of putting them in. But which, now, let's see here, what fiddles are standard? Check box. It's probably the When Jake and I played together, I usually started the tunes, and then we might trade off slightly for a little bit of it. But we want to pay tribute to Mike Humphreys on this, and with his family sitting back there, it's special to me to have Jake. So this is just an example of passing it on, and I am beyond proud of Jake because he has basically won unbelievable major contests. Gaelics how many times? I don't know.
You got me on the spot, I'm not going to say much.
But I don't put you on the spot, you're not going to say much? Well, you trimmed your beard. They're not holding their tune very good. Now, in this tune here, we're going to get into a little bit of the acrobatic fiddling and all that, so you'll see some of that. So let's get Bow the Cabbage down. Thanks a bunch, Jake, for letting me put you on the spot. It wouldn't be the first time I've done that. I tell you, there's a lot of great young fiddle players, but you probably won't place any above him. He is just unbelievable with the amount of licks and stuff that he can do. And he can also do the stuff I did earlier, the old stuff, because he learned from Lester McCombers and Melvin Wine. And those are both Vandalia Award winners. And Jake carries the tradition on. After I'm gone, he will be doing these tunes long after I'm gone, and that's good. That's how the tradition goes on. Now then, it looks like I'm down to, oh gosh. I guess at this point in time, we have Clark Kessinger.
You
talk about a handful, he is as well. And I'm going to do a tune for the audience. I'm going to say the name of it for polite company. I always introduced it as Trouble Among the Yearlings. Mike Humphreys called it a much cuter name, Devil Among the Dumb Brutes. So I would like to play this for Clark Kessinger's memory because it's got a lot of him in it. Mike Humphreys learned a great deal from Clark Kessinger. So it's got a lot of Mike Humphreys in it. There are people that says I play it more like Clark. There's people that says I play it more like Mike. So I'll take it. Either way. This one here is another one of those little showy tunes that has the triple bow jump in it. So if I don't tie the bow in a knot here. That is his triple bow jump that only me and 2 or 3 others can do. You just heard Jake do it. I always said if you land the triple bow jump on Durang's Hornpipe, it was kind of like the Karate Kid. Remember that first Karate Kid when they said there's no defense for this move? If you land it, you probably might very well win the contest. It's very hard to get around the triple bow jump, especially on Durang's Hornpipe. It is, it's a great tune for that. Trying to think here. Ed Haley. We need to get Ed Haley's picture is right here. The blind fiddler, as I mentioned earlier. I keep walking in front of the screen, all kinds of weird stuff. I did play one of his tunes. This is Ed Haley's fiddle, of which many consider the most historic fiddle, not bilingual, most historic fiddle. But there is because of Ed Haley's contribution world renowned style of playing. And Ed Haley played a tune called 4:30. And his family, he wrote that tune. The Haley family cannot verify the story, but it's one or the other. It's to celebrate the life of a little kid that was born 4:30 that died. Didn't make it. But 4:30 was the sad little thing behind its story and its legacy. It's just an incredible tune. So, you want to try that one, John? I think it may work. It is in G. This is the fiddle that he made all his last recordings on. His fiddling could be eerie. It could be very mysterious, haunting. Ed Haley, Clark Kessinger always said that the best fiddler he ever heard in his life was Ed Haley. And the Haley family, I just about completely flipped when John Hartford passed away and the Haley family got back this instrument. And they seen me taking Clark Kessinger's fiddle that's sitting back there that Jake just played on. That was Clark Kessinger's fiddle that he used. The thing is, they seen me doing one of these historical type little presentations, and they invited me down. I said, oh, I just want to see the fiddle. I just want to see it. You know, I never got to see it. And the funniest thing, I told them the little story about Parkersburg Landing. Elaine, can you hold that green album up just slightly there? That album became for sale here in Charleston at Turner's Record Shop. A few of you all probably remember Turner's Record Shop. I never thought I'd ever get to hear Ed Haley play. I didn't know there was any recordings. I heard there was a recording, and I got on the next bus to Turner's. I went and got that. But the Haley family, when they called me in, they said, Bobby, we think that you should be the caretaker of Ed's fiddle, and I about passed out. They said it's got John Hartford's little ribbon on it where he calligraphed Ed Haley's name. So that's John Hartford's little signature there too. So, and one of the favorite tunes that we love of Ed Haley's is 4:30. Hearing any of the fiddles? Usually they carry, and PA systems do not improve them. Okay. I think what we'll do now is I will play one of Clark Kessinger's fiddle. I know that we have to start winding down here, but I'd like to play Sally Ann Johnson on Clark's fiddle. Well, let me get, where is it at? Since the 1920s, Clark Kessinger used this bow. It was his prized possession. It's an Albert Nuremberger, a very, very fine bow. Very heavy bow. It's the bow that invented the triple bow. This is the bow that did that. I do have a special treat for you near the end of this program that we didn't know was going to come out, so I'm not going to tell anything. What am I going to play? Sally Johnson. Okay. By the way, all these fiddles note different, and it's a rainy night, so we'll see what happens here. Okay. Gene Mead is up here with Clark Kessinger. I got to play with Gene Mead before his death in 1981. Gene Mead was an unbelievable guitar player. A lot of guitar players would call him a real thrasher. Some would consider him even not good. But one thing that he did, because Clark Kessinger was a powerhouse fiddler, and he liked a lot of power behind him, so Gene Mead did that. He had just tremendous power. When I played with Gene Mead, I was there getting ready to play some smooth, pretty stuff, and I'm like, well, that's out the window. So I nailed into the fiddle with about 30 pounds on the bow, and I went for it, you know, and he'd break 2 strings at once to get that guitar solo. He'd take off that D and G rough. And then, little did he know in biology class, when we had to do our blood test, I passed out. And to this day, I'm a little bit, I don't want to be around blood too much, you know. Just don't know when it's going to happen. But Gene Mead, I happened to look up, and he hadn't played for I don't know how many months, and there was blood all over that fingerboard. He wasn't paying attention. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I can't look that direction. And I said, are you sure you need a break? Oh no, I'm fine. I'm not sure I am. But in either case, let's see here. Let's do another tune on number 19 here, and then I think, let's see here. I'll have to open this up to maybe some questions at the end, so I know I've got to start wrapping it up, but I do have 2 more hours of presentation. I think Brian would like to stay 2 more hours with me. Let's get up here then and play a little bit of Bill Cheatham in A. Now, tell a joke or dance? Yeah, me dance? That'd be okay. This tune here, greatly influenced by the one thing you can say, when I try to play the old stuff, I do try to keep it as pure as I can keep it. Mike Humphreys was one of the most, if I had to say, who is the most talented fiddler, I won't do that, but I will tell you this. It's not because part of Mike Humphreys' family is sitting here. This is part of my speech anywhere. I once made a statement to Bluegrass Unlimited about fiddling Mike Humphreys. I said, he played a tune with the ultimate of soul and beauty, leaving nothing more to be desired. You couldn't put anything nicer in it. He rolled things up nice and neat. And what I've always, and he always said, please don't play a tune like me. Play it like you. You'll never be good if you're playing it exactly like me. You've got to change little things. So I thought, well, since he plays it perfect, what am I going to change? So there you have that. But I don't play this exactly like him, but it's got quite a bit of Mike Humphreys' style in it and his rolls, and Mike Humphreys was a very notey fiddler. What bow do I have? Man, that sounds good. I'm not forgetting to point out some things. I think Kim may have pointed out the pressure cooker, didn't she?
No.
The banjos, Gina, no, you need to do that. No, go ahead. Tell them about the banjos. I'll figure out what's next on the front with the leave out. I'll get the other one. You can,
This one is made by Gina's Cottrell from Ivydale, and it's all homemade, and he had no electricity. And this is this round part here is a torque converter off a 56 Buick Dynaflow transmission. That's all. Don't ask me what that is. I just know this one. And these are he hammered these parts out of a dish pan, aluminum dish pan. These things. And these are knitting needles. He sliced them and embedded them in the neck for inlay. And that's about all I know. Tell about that one. That's yours.
this one here, I think may have been his earlier model.
I
We're
don't
not
know.
sure.
I don't know.
But this one here is the pressure cooker model. He'd get about 3 banjos out of the pressure cooker. And then he put a resonator on the back of this one, and it has a little different sound. It's not as, doesn't have the ring and power that one has, but it's got a nice old archaic sound. But this one here was on exhibit with the West Virginia Music Hall of Fame for a while, but I needed it back for presentations like this. So there you have the banjos. Is there? John, do you want? Would you like to play with the mandolin?
That's an old house thing.
This is a 1914 Gibson mandolin. I've had it quite a few years. See, I bought it in 1974, or 72. And it's going to be 100 years old here pretty soon, so maybe we'll have a birthday party. It's made in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and it was advertised as spruce top and mahogany back and sides. Turns out George Moon in Nashville published an article said there was actually sycamore, and they just colored it, told people it was mahogany. These mandolins were made to sell to school children, because at the time, 1914, early 1900s, the mandolin orchestras were very popular. And many of you probably seen the play Music Man, where Harold Hill goes out and tells people, it would be morally good and uplifting to have an orchestra or a band in their town. Well, the Gibson Company actually had that. They had a bunch of salesmen went around the country and sold people on the moral benefits of mandolin music. And orchestras, the mandolin played the melody. There was also mandolas, which were larger, mandocellos, and actually mando basses. And often there'd be an accordion with it. So these things became very popular, and then when the mandolin orchestra craze ran its course, they ended up playing this kind of music. Nolan Rowe made it very popular with bluegrass music, and it's become more part of traditional music, but originally it was intended for orchestras. It's not going to sound like orchestras here. Mandolin's tuned like a fiddle, and so you can play old fiddle tunes. This is one on Groundhog. minute, you can see this pick here. This is what the shape of a pick normally is when you buy them. I've had this pick since 1978. I don't even know which side was pointed at first. Can't lose it, I can't seem to lose it.
No?
We hang on to stuff that's comfortable, and that's probably his favorite pick. So there's how you have that. I would like to point out a couple of things. There's a wonderful picture of Wilson Douglas over here. Wilson Douglas Kim played with until his death. I would like to say that Wilson come to my house one day, and he played my broken Ernest Heinrich Roth, R-O-T-H, bow. And it had come apart so many times, this bow, because it was broke up here and been spliced back together. It's one of the best playing bows there is. I won't hardly tighten it up and play it because it's come apart on me on stage so many times it's not funny. But Wilson said he loved it. And I said, why don't you just take it and play it? And I think he forgot, or maybe I never told him that it was. And he said, oh no, this bow is broken. I said, Wilson, don't worry about it. Take it to Jug Dobbs, Pratt and Fiddle. He'll fix it. He's fixed it several times. But he loved this bow to the very, and he made all of his last recordings with it. So it has a very special meaning to me because Wilson Douglas, being the legend he was, this was his favorite bow. Kim Johnson is the owner of a bow that I've coveted and coveted and coveted. No hair in it. You don't play a bow, the hair falls out of it. But this is French Carpenter's bow. French Carpenter's playing the fiddle over here in the picture that's laying sideways or whatever there. Wilson's the other one that's standing upright. But this is French Carpenter's bow. All that old, eerie music was played with this. Very, very special. Another bow very special to me that I said spare no expense to Harold Hazlitt. He said, bow is not a really expensive bow. I said, spare no expense. It was broken in half. I said, I want it fixed perfectly if you can. Because Harold Hazlitt, gold medal out of 17 countries at the time, could do it perfect. He did it so perfect that it needed hair, and at that time he had problems with his hand or something he couldn't hair above. So I took it down to Joe Dobbs, and Joe Dobbs said, I thought you said this bow was broke. I put a little bit of the camber back in it and heated it. He said, that bow's never been broke. You know what? Younger eyes than I would have to tell how he put that back together because I can't find it. Harold Hazlitt's repair was that good. But this is fiddling. Mike Humphreys had many, many bows and fiddles. This is one of them that Larry gave me, broke in half. Larry just passed away. Very dear person to me, and his father was Pete. We always called him Pete, but his name was Earl Humphreys. He was a great old-time banjo player, winner of Bandelion on clawhammer banjo. Also played the three-finger style as well. I would like to dedicate this program, but I do have a surprise for you. But I do want to dedicate this program in memory of my dad, Lincoln Taylor, 1911 to 2005. The 22nd of this month, he would be 100.
Oh.
This is him playing in his 90s, so as you leave, take a look. Dad was the grand old man of the fiddle and had the most beautiful double shuffle. He's even on one of Jake's albums, isn't he? Yep. Jake had him record a tune on one of his albums. And Jake has many recordings on my dad, and they're all wonderful. But at this point in time, Brian, come and help me. I got a surprise for you all, but wait, maybe not quite yet. I goofed up. I got it. But Brian, come on up. You can start getting it. I don't know if you all know who this is. Probably not. No. Yeah. I like him better than Elvis, I think. Actually, Senator Byrd was not necessarily a politician to me. He was my fiddling friend. He was very special to me. I could call his office and they would put him right on here. So that was neat. Jake and It's in this picture. And Cinder Bird's holding my fiddle. There's Andrew Dunlap, me, and Dara Crack, Jake's mother. When we played at the Clay, was that the Clay Center gig, Jake? I think it was. And this is me also. Jake is hidden kind of with the other fiddle there behind me in that shot. There is the front of Golden Seal now, when I've got an article in there as well. And the thing is, John has these for sale. They're laying out over there in Mountains of Music, the Heritage of West Virginia Fiddling. Those are available for sale, I might add. And I tell you, one of the most tense moments of my life and most honoring was when the family of Robert C. Byrd called and asked me if I would play when they brought him to Charleston for his service on Friday here and all the way to Arlington. And so this is his memorial card that you see up there. And like I said, it was a very sad day for me because he was a very close friend. That was probably the hardest gig I've ever played because I remember at the end of Amazing Grace, they wanted mournful, so I played it E. He said, I don't want no violin sound, the family said in this. At the very end, it almost sounded a little violin. But in either case, in 2008, when it was his 90th birthday, and I called him in 2007, and I said, Senator Byrd, I have a present for you. They want to give you the Perry F. Harris Award. Would you accept it? He said, of course I will. Let's talk about fiddling. So we started talking about fiddling. So anyway, next year it come close to time for Senator Byrd to go to Nashville, third most powerful man in the nation. And Ed Carnes is there going nuts because he's running the Grand Masters, saying, is he coming? I said, well, I'll call. I called up there, and I didn't get to talk to Senator Byrd this time, but I talked to Martha Ann McIntosh. And I said, there's only one question. Is he coming to Nashville to get his award? She went and asked him. She said, is Bobby Taylor going to play me Redbird? I'll come if Bobby Taylor plays me Redbird at the presentation. I said, I'll play it for it. They brought me, because I was judging the Masters, out. I was in pretty good practice then, even though I had to play Senator Byrd's fiddle with all the inlay on it that was donated to the West Virginia Hall of Fame. But I had practiced a little, so I was in a little better shape than perhaps today then, because I'd practiced to play as one of the judges of the Grand Masters. So you had to have your ducks in a row for that. But I was playing a strange fiddle, and we're cluing it up there. They brought Senator Byrd out. All of his staff, most of his staff, all come from Washington. There were some senators there and everything in presence for him to get his award. And we had the nicest time there, and I'd like to close this program. We didn't put this in the paper. This is an added bonus. So this is probably my proudest moment as far as being able to play for Senator Byrd and the fact that he was such a dear fiddling friend of mine. So for my fiddling friend, I'd like to also send the program out to the fiddler, Robert C. Byrd.
Will be the Redbird.
Yeah, Redbird.
All right, Bobby, take off on the West Virginia Redbird.
Look at that fiddle.
I need a lot of room on the stage. I need about 6 foot clearance there for this tune. You'll see why in a minute. This is one called Redbird. I've always played this for Senator Robert C. Byrd. I learned little bits and pieces of this tune off of his record. So here is one of his tunes.
was that, Senator?
Look at that fiddle.
For pictures, anybody that wants to, I'm sure there'll be a couple people that'll want a picture like that.
Yeah. You're not gonna get your truth back either. Yep. There it is. This is your chance. Look at that. Isn't that a beauty? Wonderful. Yes, what a beauty.
Senator, I think we have time for one more tune, and we'd like to ask you what you'd like to hear.
How about Durang? Durang? Yeah.
I think they're negotiating on the tune. Senator, how did the negotiation go? Did you win? I think he probably did. What are you playing, Bobby?
I think we'll do a little bit of one of my favorite off of his album. Another one, Durang's Hornpipe.
All right.
I get more requests for this tune than any tune I've ever played, so.
That is really great. Let's hear it for Senator Byrd. And again, Senator, on behalf of the Grandmaster Fiddler Championship and Dr. Perry F. Harris's family and Howard Harris, we are so honored to have you here, and we're so happy to give you this award. That's the good news. The bad news, you have to go through this again tonight. with a few more lights. But I think we're very excited. The Grand Ole Opry is very excited to have you coming out, and we just can't thank you enough, sir.
I'd like to also recognize, Senator Byrd, the gentleman that took that picture, I believe, is in our audience. Mr. Les Leverett, aren't you here, Les? Stand up. Give him a hand. He was the photographer. Les Leverett was the photographer for WSM Grand Ole Opry for how many years, Les? 35 years? 32. My wife says I always measure things wrong. I don't know why. But we are honored that you're here, and Mrs. Perry F. Harris, Dr. Harris's widow, I guess my mother, my stepmother, whatever. I love her. She's my mother. I have two mothers. I'm very blessed. But thank you also for being here. And my little brother he is a junior at Ole Miss and could not make it. So you know how those college boys are. Thank you very much, Senator. We're honored, and the rest of the staff that came. It's a thrill for me to see all this for fiddling, and I wanted Ed to talk to me, so I wasn't sure if I could get through it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for coming out, and I guess it's about time for us to close it down, isn't it, Brian?
It's time to give him a round of applause. I'm sure you guys would like to ask him some questions, so why don't we take a few questions from the floor, and we'll all go on. Questions?
Most of these fiddles are played on a regular basis. I can't help but play them because people come by the house like a revolving door, musicians, and they want to hear them.
They need to be played.
They do need to be played, so there is some more played than others. This one here isn't played for a reason, because Dad took the bridge on it and I can't play it. Whatever that is. He carved it himself, making it quite special. And this fiddle here that he made when I was a little boy is quite difficult to play. But the rest of them, I do play somewhat regular. And the two fiddles that I play the most are the Little Brown Fiddle and the Hazlet number 19. And then when I do historical shows, these two usually go to Clark Kessinger and Ed Haley. And usually that's all the audience gets to see. Usually the little guitar doesn't get to go. Because we went to St. Louis, the University of Chicago Folk Festival. We did these presentations, and it would be impossible to take all this and try to get through a show when you have people wanting to learn a tune here and there, because a lot of these workshops are oriented that way. But since you all are a concert-style audience tonight, I thought I'd see if I could get through all this entourage of instruments. But I'm honored that you come, and this, like I said, this is the only time the Taylor family fiddles has come out. Yes?
Could you elaborate a little bit on Hassel and Humphreys and what fiddler family she was from?
She's from Taylor's. Her last name is
Hasseltine Taylor Humphreys. Her grandfather was John Oscar Taylor. I think it was her grandfather, if I've got my facts straight. Mike Humphreys, the Humphreys family, I go back 2 grades to get to John Oscar, and so my cousins are sitting back there. They're several points removed, but Hasseltine was a Taylor, and she was from the Taylor family fiddlers. And she learned, like I said, from Lyle Taylor a good bit. She knew him. And she was, And I might also add that Sam Jarvis, that you heard me mention, is also a distant cousin from Roane County Fiddlers. When you get to Roane County, I'm related to everybody in Roane County in a certain area. Elaine Gates is related to all the rest of them. So there, Elaine's behind all the pictures here. She's a Roane County lady herself. But Hasseltine, we do go back to my great-grandfather, and then Hasseltine ties in there. Any other questions?
You said you had a couple more Irish presentations when you going to give it.
I can do
Do a part B for
I can do a part B real fast on anything almost you see here. I can do hours on Ed Haley or Clark Cousin.
I think it'd be nice to do another show next year.
You think?
Oh, yeah.
I'd like for you to give a round of applause too to Jake, who Jake, if you get a chance, check out wherever Jake's playing. You'll not be satisfied. He is a very, very driving young fiddle player, as you can see. And like I say, the legacy of the Fiddlers, it's wonderful that we have talented young people passing it on. And that's very important to me, and it's important to my family to pass it on. And that's why the Fiddles are my children, basically. They all have their little stories. They all have their little memories. Any other questions? Yes.
We lived in Elkins for a while, so there's a great tradition there.
Yes.
Fiddling and banjo playing. And I didn't know whether this is true or not, but they said there that the banjo, especially, women shouldn't play. That they wouldn't teach their daughters
That was,
the banjo. But I
Well,
mean, they really did say that a lot of
the thing is, when you go back in history, like I mentioned earlier, the fact that Hasseltine come out and beat all those fiddlers, this was probably in the 1930s. Unheard of. And the thing is, a lot of women didn't play. They raised the kids and left all the music and other stuff to
No,
men.
but the fathers wouldn't teach it to them.
Yeah, because you
And
run around with trashy fiddlers.
Yeah.
And drink and fight.
Yeah, now that did go along with it. That did go along with it.
Right, the Curtis brothers, we knew the Curtis brothers. You
I knew the
well.
Curtis.
Right, and they had a daughter, and Jimmy and them would not teach notes. They told her she could not play.
We were fortunate, though, to have, they would be over 100 now if they were living. We had 3 or 4 great banjo ladies, being Sylvia O'Brien, Phoebe Parsons, Ruth Lyons, and Aunt Jenny Wilson. The unbelievable old ladies, you'd bring them on the stage and it was just like heaven, you know. They took you back a lot of years. And they would always come in with their highly floral dresses that Daisy's made. Or Vandalia. They called them their Vandella dresses. And they'd come on the stage carrying these big pocketbooks. They'd come out there with their banjo and sit down and play wonderful music. They were characters. They were wonderful people. Any other? Yes?
Your old fiddle's got rattles in
The ones that I've got here doesn't, but there's some at the house that does. This is a fraction of what I have. Yes.
I would love to hear the difference in sound of the other banjo, if you said it's a totally different sound.
Kim, would you like to?
What would you like me to render?
You can render whatever you want.
Just sit here. Just sit here. Well, I can't hold it, it's not the strap.
You want to sit in the chairs?
I'll put it right
It's fine.
Okay, yeah.
Why did you use a pressure cooker? Did you not like your pressure cooker?
Why did she not use it?
Yeah. I didn't. Why did you turn it into a banjo? It was round, and you can slice it like three, make 3 banjos out of one hot. It had like a metal blade or something. I don't know, it's like a metal, it was like a.
Yeah, and he'd make, like she said, 3 banjos out of 1 pressure cooker.
Recycling.
Yeah. Recycling, yeah. Well, he used everything. You know, he was an old mountain man. And old-time people from the rural areas used whatever they had.
That's aluminum?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
All right. If there's no more questions, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Realize that Vandalia is coming up at the end of this month, for the weekend, and Cliff Top, I'm not sure.
It's the first weekend in August.
First weekend of August. If you don't know what we're talking about, stop by and ask one of us, and we'll tell you more about it. All right. Good night.